Hey, Ghost Machine fans, this one's for you.
Welcome to the Ghost Machine Fans Podcast, episode 16. I am Snoggle, aka Becky, and I am joined by my special friend Nick. And we also have our special guest Mike back again. Hi, Mike.
Hi, thank you so much for having me back on to talk about the Loyalist Redcoat. I myself, a Northerner, a loyalist to the the great United Kingdom.
Oh my goodness. That's fortuitous considering our last guest on the show was actually British.
Maybe us will take over. Yeah. Soon there'll be no Americans on the Redcoat episodes.
Ohio could just morph into Canada.
Exactly.
We could be transplanted. So it's not just any Mike that we have today, right? We have Michael Schwartz, who was with us on our last Redcoat deep dive, which was number 2. He's our Canadian screenwriter / comic book author / Ghost Machine fan friend. And we are stoked to have you back, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed being on the first time on Redcoat issue 2. And I loved your interview with Brian Hitch. Redcoat is my absolute favorite Ghost Machine book. So I really appreciate you having me on to chat about it.
Thank you for saying that about Brian. We felt that he was quite the fancy gentleman.
And if anyone hasn't listened to that interview, they need to pause this and go over and listen to that, because that's way better than listening to me, especially.
Oh. Well, I don't know.
Different levels of entertainment. Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah.
Either way, they should listen to it. They should listen to it.
Well, we do want to take a moment, and we talked about the release of your comic book Armored last time. Since then, the second issue has come out. Also, the Kickstarter concluded, which Snoggle and I participated in. We really dug that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have just seen you at a new comic book store every couple of days on Instagram, signing comic books. It's just so cool to me. And there was even, if I recall correctly, a time where you had a picture of Kevin Smith holding up a copy of Armored in a picture with you.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to be invited to do a signing at the Secret Stash, Kevin's comic book shop. That was just a huge highlight of my signing experiences so far. It's crazy. I went from having 3 weekends this summer doing a signing to every single weekend I have a signing now. I have comic shops asking me to come, which is totally unexpected, completely unexpected. So yeah, most of them are in Canada, but I did 2 in New Jersey. One was Secret Stash, and I got to meet Kevin Smith. I'm signing at San Diego Comic-Con in a couple weeks. And then I have one at Golden Apple Comics in LA, which is to me, I used to see ads for Golden Apple. I don't know if it was in Wizard Magazine or where. I just remember seeing it. And, whenever I visit LA, I check out the store. So it's pretty cool that they're inviting me to do a signing there. So any listeners from LA, come hit up Golden Apple August 3rd.
Oh my gosh, my birthday.
Here you go.
It is. Yeah, we'll have to go. It's only in a couple.
We'll have to remember that. Yeah.
We enjoyed the comic, and I've seen a lot of people continue to gush about the visual storytelling and the watercolor art. That seems to really have differentiated this for you guys, which I think is awesome. So congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, and it just made a top 30 comics of 2024 so far, thanks to the Comic Book Couples Counseling Podcast. They named it.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah, one of the best books of the year so far. So, it could go down, but right now, so far, it's...
It won't.
Wow. That's super exciting. Thank you so much for finding an hour amidst your busy autograph schedule for us.
I would cancel you guys.
Oh my goodness, don't say that, because then something's going to happen and they're going to be like, it was those Ghost Machine jokers that took our Michael away. There you go. No, I'd love to come to one of your signings, because I got all the variant covers. I got all the stuff. I have all the OG Armored because of the
Oh
Kickstarter. Plus,
man.
I got the foils, so it's like, yeah. But we'll have to wait until
Yeah.
CGC's around to witness it. Otherwise.
Okay. Can't wait.
Well, we'll get to our shout outs for this episode. As you know, Mike, we usually have some of those that are focused on fans. And recently, the Facebook group reached 1,000 members, which we did a celebratory raffle for. And it went rather well. I'd like to briefly talk about that. But the shout outs that we have this time are for this abundance of folks who are just chomping at the bit to donate things for us to give away to grow the community, which is just extraordinary. And I wanted to recognize a couple of those folks. First one is Joe Grace. She donated a fantastic Rook Choose Your Animal hoodie to the group, which one of the winners got. Another is Mr. Shannon Casey. He's super supportive of the podcast. He's always commenting on Instagram and on Facebook, and he has sent us several Jeff Johns signed books that I just got in the mail today that we're going to be raffling off on the Instagram. And also a big shout out to Stand It Up Comics. They make these really cool stands. I think a lot of people have seen them on Instagram, and they made the stands that we've used in some of our videos. They donated one of those stands, and they donated a Rook, like the head of Rook. It was a mini bust that they 3D printed that was designed by Black Gorilla Armory. So just like all this really neat stuff that's like not necessarily what you typically would associate with this just a comic book, So really appreciate all the folks that contributed to that. The raffle was just for fun, you know what I mean? It wasn't to gain followers or anything like that. It was really just to celebrate the group. And what people had to do is they had to tell us what their favorite Ghost Machine character or creator was. And I expected to get a lot of short whatever responses because people just want to win stuff. And that wasn't the case. Like we had so many people, like over 70 people put lengthy descriptions of why they loved a character or why they loved a creator. And like some of them would even tell you like the story that led up to this point that was Ghost Machine for them. And I just think it's a testament to how cool this community is really becoming, because it was pages and pages of stuff on my phone that I had to scroll through in order to get all these names on this raffle wheel. And I just hope everybody out there who participated in that knows how much we appreciate you, because you are making this community awesome.
Also a testament to the books that these books are resonating with so many people. It's fantastic.
And so many people that either are just getting back to comics because of them or have never read comics. I am meeting tons of people that are like, this is the first time I've read comics. This is awesome. So that's really cool as well. Just some really quick Ghost Machine news. We did see the Hyde Street, which all of us have talked about a bit. I think we're all looking forward to that Supernatural series.
So cool looking.
Yvonne Rice and Danny Mickey. It does look super cool. I don't know if you're familiar with Mike Diodato. He's an artist, Snoggle, that has done a lot of cool books. He did some of the Old Man Logan stuff. He did some of the Savage Avengers stuff. And he is put together a variant cover for Hyde Street that was posted online. Looks really, really cool.
I have some of his Hulk stuff, his older Hulk Marvel stuff.
Oh. And then also we saw some covers for Maytal's book Devour been coming out there, like really creepy. Looks like it's horror related to like eating, like she's eating this creepy cake like on the picture.
It reminded me of like horror Garbage Pail Kids.
Ooh.
I was getting Thinner vibes. Have you seen Stephen King's Thinner, the movie, or read the short story? I think it was a novella. Yeah, I was getting kind of that kind of vibe. Look cool.
Are those releasing in October for creepy season?
Yeah, and then Rockefeller's is November, I think.
Yes, I know Rockefeller's is November. I know Hyde Street, I think, is October. I wasn't sure if Devour was coming out at the same time, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. The Devour is just a one shot though, so that'll be interesting to see.
Oh, it is. It's not an ongoing.
I don't know whether or not it will become an ongoing, as that does tend to sometimes happen. You know what I mean? But right now, the covers that they put out say Devour #1 (parentheses one shot). But I don't get the impression that was the only book or story that Maytal was going to write. So we'll have to see. And we're at that point where we have to do something patented and special. Snoggle, what is that thing that we must do now?
Spoiler alert.
Oh,
we are going to tell every little thing and panel in this book. So if you haven't read the book, you need to pause, listen to our prior interview then read the book so you can come back and fully appreciate us deep diving for Redcoat number 3.
It's interesting that you say that because she's absolutely right. Like it'll make it better with some of the things that Brian shared with us. I will pass the microphone to the both of you with this question. Ghost Machine fans, if you take a look at Redcoat 3A, the regular cover, or the first cover, it has a wraparound cover, which has been the case for all of the regular covers. And it's just like on another level, especially these monsters. So what are your impressions, Snoggle and Michael, of this? This to me is my favorite Redcoat cover so far.
I was super looking forward to this issue because of this cover. What I think Brian Hitch first posted the wraparound, or maybe it was Brad Anderson, and I was just like, "Whoa!" I think we even talked about it on the podcast, maybe on the last episode about Redcoat, and I was just like, "What are these creatures? This looks awesome! I can't wait for the next one." There's some totems in the background. I think we talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
My issue is they're not in here. Where are these creatures? When are they coming? That is my question.
Maybe they're coming in Hyde Street.
That's way too long to wait.
You must wait till October.
You know, that's a good point. I was really vibing with it until you pointed that out. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
I think you're right, but I think some of them you kind of see in the creepy room.
You're right. We do see one of those creatures. It looks like it's a possibility. I thought that was just a monkey when I read it, but you might be right. That one creature may be one of them.
Yeah, just one.
Very interesting. You know, I wonder, how early does he do these covers? I wonder if the plotting kind of changed and that's how this happened. Like, I do wonder what came first. Like, I know on my book, there's a cover where I just really wanted one character to be on it. And you'll see in that issue what's happening on the cover. The girl not a part of that story. So I wonder if it's just that. I'd be curious how this cover came to be like this. And it doesn't match what's on the inside. It's still a wicked cover.
It is a wicked cover. It's the type of thing that I would want to frame and put on my dorm room in college. To focus on the backside of this, there is just this myriad of mutant-y, goblin-y. One of them looks like the creature from the Black Lagoon. That's probably my favorite one. There's another one that has antlers. And then there's also a massive snake-horned dragon snake thing, like over the top. So like there are all these metal things like this. We need Rook to like shoot these or something. You know what I mean? And all of those things, with the exception of the monkey, which we'll discuss in the scene later, apparently, I guess they're not in the book. But as I think back to the other wraparounds, we did talk about that last time, that there was like, it was kind of just like a tapestry of stuff that had happened to him. But at the same time, this isn't. This is rather specific. Like it looks like all these crazy creatures are coming from something. And the only thing that really is in the book, in the issue, is this glowing blue Founding Fathers tome thing, right?
But that's also Einstein. Who's the other gentleman?
Sure. Oh, well, I wasn't including the people. I think the other one is Benny, but just...
Oh, you think so?
I mean, that's blonde hair.
I was wondering if it's just the light. I would have to take a look at his outfit. If not, then that's another character that we don't know.
So that dude on the cover has a ponytail, but Benny does not. So
it's an old Simon. But
we definitely know he's going to get
another observation about this cover, guys. The big snake thingy, the skeleton of the big snake thingy is right there.
You're totally right. Okay.
So maybe this is a Back to the Future past shot. I don't know.
Interesting. Get Brian Hitch back on right now.
Yeah, we better call him. It's only like, 2 a.m. where he is or something. It'll be fine. Wow. Good find, Snoggle.
No, I think this will be really interesting because it doesn't seem like, when Brian was talking about future, like he has thought far ahead.
Now,
He was like,
was it on the podcast? I don't know if it was the podcast or if it was on a post recently. He said he was like in tears from
it
an
was the
issue.
podcast, and I think he
It
posted
was the
about it too.
podcast.
It was 7.
Yeah, that was like, what is that issue?
Okay, so if the skeleton is there, then is this cover giving us a window into the past in some way?
Maybe they're about to time travel.
This feels like a hint at the time travel aspect we've been seeing in Geiger.
Uh-huh.
Or was it Junkyard Joe? Which one ended with the time travel? You see all the characters. Actually, was it Geiger recently had a little Redcoat panel, didn't it?
The very end of the first of Junkyard Joe, there was time travel where you saw Redcoat peering through. And I think there was one in Geiger as well.
There are both. In Junkyard Joe number 6, we see a portal open, and if I recall, it had Tariq and it had the Northerner in it, and Barney. And then they say something like, no, we went back too far, we have to go back and fight. And they jump back in the time portal, and that's it. And then in Geiger Ground Zero number 2, it's a more elaborate thing. That's when we first see the viewpoint through Junkyard Joe's lenses, essentially. And that's when you see those characters interspersed together again. And yes, there was a Redcoat thing in a recent issue of Geiger where he's talking about, he's like, oh, you hunk of junk. Usually it's my fault, but this time it's you. It was something like that. And when we talked to Brian, he emphasized how time travel allowed him a lot more creative flexibility. And he liked that.
Cool.
I would love to hear from both of you this first page about the Axe of Lies and the cherry tree. I'm curious if Mike had ever heard that mythology as a loyalist. And I will tell you that when we first started talking about the Axe of Lies, in the back of my mind, I was like, maybe that's the one that chopped down that cherry tree, but nah, it couldn't be that. So just putting that out there. What did you guys think of that?
Do you want the loyalists interpretation?
Yes.
So I immediately asked my wife. I said, "What is this? Is this a true story? What is this? What's happening here?" Because as I mentioned on the previous episode, for any new listeners, I'm Canadian and my wife is American, and she just laughed and said, "Yeah, why are you asking me about this?" But the thing that confused me as a Canadian was the last line. But of course, like many stories about the great originators of America, the legend of the cherry tree is complete rubbish, in part at least. So I was confused. Is this Jeff Johns writing that it's complete rubbish, like writing as Simon saying this, or is it complete rubbish? Like, do you all believe that it's not really a true story?
Oh, what do you
I
think?
think it's like an old wives' tale.
Oh, okay.
Like, it's just like, oh, good old George, he cut down a cherry tree and he was so honest, he had to tell his parents about it.
Okay, yeah, because he does say a bootlicker named Parson Weems wrote a heavily embellished biography, and so I'm guessing that's when it came about. Okay, so apologies, not familiar, didn't know your founding father was, such a pure soul like that, would never tell a lie.
I think it was propaganda to make George Washington seem like the most honest. I mean, this is politician at the beginning.
Yes, I think that the rubbish is Simon's opinion / he's one of the very few people in the world that knows the truth, and that most Americans think that's true.
Gotcha.
Sure.
Okay.
But it is a mythological thing. And then the next page, the very first thing is the back of Benny's head. And he clearly doesn't have a ponytail. And now I really want to know who that dude on the cover was. Mike, you got me on that one.
Before I read this issue, the second page spread, I just flipped through it and I was like, whoa, he floats now? And then it was just such an interesting way that Brian laid it out. I kind of love it so that we can see the book he's looking at. But at first, before reading, I was like, what is going to happen this issue? He's floating in the air. Did either of you have that first reaction at all?
I absolutely did. I'm like,
For sure.
What's happening? Is he walking up the walls?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious if they were all falling or if they were like, going upwards, or if I was super curious about that. You pointed something out about the way that Brian laid this out, and I just realized that I don't know the right terminology, but it's pretty neat. Like you said, that the book is open, like Benny is holding the book, but then the Benny in this picture that's holding the bigger book that you can see Washington on, he's standing, like his floor is the rest of the panel. And then there's another Benny standing at the fireplace. Like, that's really neat because it's something that nothing but a comic book could do. Even a movie, I don't really think could do that in the same way.
No, definitely not.
What do you think of the way that he gives the account of what happened with Washington and how he was involved in it?
Well, he obviously hates him.
Right.
He said, how does a self-important fanatic like Washington go down in history as a celebrated saint, and yet I forever as a turncoat snake?
I just find it so ballsy for Jeff and Brian to show the founding father like this. Like, look, I don't know if I'm skipping ahead too far, but page 4, he's pulling the hair of another man, a redcoat, obviously. So we really don't care about him. And he's got that axe, and he's just slaughtering people. It is unreal.
And it looks like he's almost going to scalp the guy.
Oh, he's going to cut off his head. Yeah.
And he says right in that panel that you're talking about, George went on to use the hatchet in all matters of war and ritual until it grew into a deadly totem of mystic force. So literally, this thing became bad because of how much he used it to do horrible, horrendous stuff. And that it gained this enchantment, and it became this axe.
This was really great writing, by the way, because the axe in the story that America knows, and it's the fable, is like, he was so honest. So, of course, he told his dad, like, so the axe is supposed to be built on, like, truth and honesty, because he did cut down a tree, but then he lied and said it was the neighbor so he wouldn't get in trouble. And then he goes on a murderous spree with his axe of lies.
It kind of makes you think, well, Benny isn't a very nice guy, but he sounds like he isn't as evil as this version of George Washington.
It seems like Benny's pretty jaded. I actually find Benny kind of funny.
Yeah, I kind of like Benny as well.
Oh, I'm starting to like him because of this issue. I didn't at first. This is making me like him. This makes it more like he's kind of owning his slipperiness.
He's very funny with Einstein because he cannot stand listening to his voice, which is hilarious. The accent. He cannot stand the accent.
He does point something out that I thought was interesting. When Simon is saying that he's being pursued by the founding fathers, Benny's like, no, we did away with them years ago. So there's a story there of him and Simon doing an Anakin Skywalker and going through and getting rid of all the founding fathers or whatever. And then it's neat to me how this is actually the panel that made me kind of like him. He talks about how and it's so weird that this ties to the unnamed stuff. On July 1st in 1826, during the height of the infighting amongst what was left of the founding fathers, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson were cut by the axe. And then they both died 3 days later to the minute on the 4th of July, which is arguably the most significant date in the world of the unnamed. And in the next panel, he's got this like sneaky Brian Hitch's ability to put subtlety on his face is amazing. And he says Adams and Jefferson's killer was never caught. And he's like, but I'm not going to admit it, but it was obviously me. It's basically what it looks like he's saying.
I mean, what we learned to find out, he even alluded that he kind of wants him to die, and it seems like he wants to collect him. Because he says, Simon, you're headed right into the lion's mouth. I won't skip too far ahead, but we know that the lion's mouth is his secret room. Did you guys kind of pick up on that a little bit?
You're saying
I've seen it happen before, I'm afraid.
That he essentially is alluding to the fact that the secret passage had the lion on it because he'd like to add Simon to his collection ultimately?
Maybe.
I mean, I like it.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to turn the page and continue to theorize, as it were. But I did think that was kind of like a national treasure slash Indiana Jones moment that they have there. Because what's the sequence of events here exactly? Because something has to get Benny out of the room so that they can do this neat thing that we're talking about.
Yeah, so what was it, Juliet that arrives and pulls Benny back to the party? Is that where they're going, back to the party? And he's not too concerned about Simon because Simon he believes on his deathbed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not really an issue at this point. So he leaves for the party, and then Einstein ends up discovering the secret entrance to his Batcave. Benny's Batcave. So to
Benny's
speak.
Batcave.
Or his library. His library.
That's going in the episode notes right there.
Benny's Batcave.
Yeah. And this is probably one of my favorite splash pages that we've seen. And now that Snoggle said that, there are other creatures from the cover on it. There are a couple others.
On the cover, we have like 3 floating heads, and I think I see one of the floating heads in Jar. We have a totem. What else do you guys see?
You have a top hat that is encased in something. There's a hammer that looks like Thor's hammer.
The big old snake.
Big old snake. There's the T-Rex.
An eagle. Every American room needs an eagle, right? You guys have an eagle in your house, I presume? And we have beavers in our house.
Yes, it's just on the other side of the camera.
And actually, it's interesting. In the back, there's a flag. I just noticed this too. There's a flag, and it's one of those old school style flags that has the stars for the original, I believe, 13 colonies. And there's a broken sword in there. So it's a room that is clearly a collection, right? Yeah. Because all of these items, it's very comic booky. There's even like a taxidermied goblin-looking guy from the front. There's also what looks like a taxidermied human guy, like right in the middle, holding an axe. So that's interesting.
Is that Brian Hitch right there? Is that him? Did he draw?
That's what it is. It's just, and then it's the breaking the fourth wall. He's there. That's it. We're never going to see it again. It could be wax.
Yeah, it could. There's also looks like some satanic creature or something. It looks like some devil.
That's a good point. Mm-hmm.
And is that Excalibur the sword? Do you think?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And that what
out of hand.
What about the skull with the candle? Any significance there? Do you think?
It just looks cool.
Feel very like that might be the only thing in there that is like, now we just had to put this in here because it's cool.
Yeah.
But I have seen, actually, no. If you recall, in the other scenes when they've had Benjamin Franklin on the slabs, and when like Simon got the power instead, they did have like a tome out, and they did have a few of these skulls with candles on them at that. So, and there's a golden railroad tie. That's rather specific as well, or something like it looks like a pike of some kind. So this is Benedict Arnold's secret stash for all intents and purposes, I guess you could say. There is a little mention, it's like foreshadowing as they're poking around in here, and he's like, hey, there's some apple seeds. That's weird. And then we'll just move on.
You know what? Sorry, I just Googled the golden spike. So if this was a reference to the golden spike that they kept the last spike and they clad it in gold and silver used to complete the transcontinental railroad. And it's worth $2.22 million. It's a lot of money. That could be what that is.
I'm sure that's what that is. And you get the gold star. No, really, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that is very cool. And so as we see that again, it's next to the book. So it's really significant because the main centerpiece for the room seems to be this magical tome of the founding fathers. It is cool though, as he's walking from a different angle around to see that, they have more of those heads in those jars. They have the rest of them, those floating heads. So there's stuff going on there. And as soon as he puts his hand on that book and we get a panel that's just him with his hand on that book, he says, I know that symbol. And so do a whole bunch of Ghost Machine fans, because it's the same symbol that's on Junkyard Joe's dog tags. It's the same symbol that's on the federal agent's badge and papers in the Blizzard storyline. We've seen it in so many cool places. It's the symbol that's tattooed to George Washington's chest. Right away, they say they can't understand what it is. And then out of nowhere,
blue explosion.
whoa,
They got
explosion.
found. I mean, that's what happens. And it is beautifully done, by the way.
That's a Brad Anderson joint right there. The contrast between the magical blue as opposed to the buildings at night. And it does say right before that, Einstein says that he has to figure out the language in the book. He doesn't know what it is. But this blast goes through the whole house. Like, it's pretty big when you consider they must have been blasting, I guess, in from the outside because they're coming in there to get at them. And it's just this massive blue Founding Fathers magic. And then we see Einstein and Simon on the ground after the explosion. And then you see one of the goofy, I don't know why, but I always think that they're like the National Lampoon's version of a cult. That's the way that they're presented, and you see one of them, he's got the wand in the air. And what did you guys think of? It's just one panel, but by seeing the way that these three cultish goofballs talk to each other, it tells us so much about what's going on.
Yeah, well, they're calling each other idiot. This is supposed to be a secret cult, ain't it? Like, they really feel like bumbling cult leaders.
They seem to not know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, they just fell upon the magic and the magic wand, and they're like, I guess we're doing this.
They're clearly the lackeys of someone.
Mm-hmm. Good point. We really haven't thought or talked about that. So it makes you wonder.
Oh, that does make sense. Like, I promise you eternal life. You just got to go get this dude named Simon Pure for us.
Here's a super wand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so they blow a hole in the place, and the foreshadowing about apple seeds, because it's like he literally just mentions, why would there be apple seeds in here? They knock over Johnny Appleseed's apple seeds, and then we get this awesome supernatural story vibe. And this huge page where Benedict Arnold's house has these like trees growing in and out of it. And that's how they essentially like disrupt the attack, right? It's because these apple seeds, as soon as they hit something that they can grow out of, it grows everywhere.
You got to feel bad for Benny. He a hole in the wall and now trees. That's just too much. And he's throwing a party.
His secret room destroyed.
Yeah. So they escape onto the streets. Thanks to some branches. Yeah, hitch a ride on a carriage. And it looks like it's a carriage filled with, what is it? Spirits.
It is. H.W. Beckett Distiller and Spirits, which, before we spend more time on it, I Googled the heck out of that one, and I can't find anything significant. Other than there's like some Beckett's liquor in general, but I don't think it's the same brand. So they steal that to get away. And in that process, Einstein... like, you can tell he is fixated on, quote unquote, unlocking Simon's true gifts because of his sister's visions, right? That's where, as we recall, so much of his motivation comes from. He believes that there's that Simon has the potential to be a wizard. Then he realizes that the book is written in Latin backwards. So that was the elaborate deception of whoever created the book to write it backwards.
I feel like even if I knew Latin, if it was written backwards, I'd be like, it's gibberish.
Oh, absolutely. I think it would certainly take the layman quite some time. I probably wouldn't notice it at a glance by any means. And it's a book of spells.
Yep.
He says it can unlock his true gifts. And then this kind of takes I don't want to say a Harry Potter turn, but they do try to invoke some magic with your typical kind of, what do you call it? An incantation? I think that's the term for that.
I do really enjoy Einstein as his sidekick, because we were asked in a previous listener question, who, if we were to be the sidekick of anyone, who would we be? And I was like, obviously Simon. I picked him so quick because I think it's just a good time. But he is being put in a lot of peril.
Yeah, he'll survive. Einstein will definitely make it out of this.
There'll be a crazy plot twist.
So while
in history,
while he's trying to decipher the book and figure out an incantation, they're still being pursued by the silly cult members.
Yes.
Which one of you wants to read the incantation?
Snoggle loves Harry Potter, so she should do it.
There you go.
Scintilla.
He said,
Ignis.
now again, und ze it calmly. It's like his Hermione moment.
Yeah.
Wingardium
Yes.
Leviosa.
Exactly.
Scintilla ignis inferni. Oh, that pretty much. Ignite
Right.
fire. I don't know what scintilla would be,
Well,
but
to scintillate or to scintillate, I don't know the proper pronunciation, but it's to like glimmer or
Oh.
something like that.
then he says it wrong. Scintilla ignis inferni. Like he does the wrong syllables. Syllables.
Syllables. He does, but then he does it again and he gets it right. And it's like, oh yeah, we were driving a cart full of liquor. It's
But
flammable.
Einstein knows. Einstein goes, Scheiße. Like, oh
Yeah,
no.
that's pretty funny. It's an awesome page though. Like this page with the explosion.
Oh,
I know
so
that
cool.
Brian really loves to draw horses, and you can see it here. It's
They're
just
perfect,
awesome.
yeah. I love Brad Anderson's like effects work, like the blurring effect he adds to the explosion. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't actually catch that. It's also neat how Simon's eyes glow blue, right, as he's summoning that. But
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, I thought they were gonna get away. But as we turn the page, in the end, he's right back on that slab, and there's one of those skull candles sitting right next to him. And he's right there with the Three Stooges. And I guess we'll have to see what happens. Do you think he's gonna make it out?
I'm concerned for him.
It feels like an episode of the old Batman show. Like next time, join us next month, same time, same place. There's one last line that I find very interesting. You're going to help us burn America to the ground, which I find interesting. So these guys clearly don't like America. And
True.
Are they assuming because he's a redcoat he doesn't either? What are they thinking? Or do they need his power? Like, what's the deal here?
I would
Yeah, it's
wager
very
that
interesting. The
Go ahead,
Grand Architect will be most pleased. So they are minions.
Yep.
He does point out, though, he says, when the person that says the Grand Architect will be most pleased is right next to him, he does say, and then, for the first time since that first ritual in 1776, I feel that presence again, judging me. It's like, that's interesting. But I think they know I think they're going to try to extract his power. I think that's why they had the axe. I think it's something like that, because on the preview for number 4 on the next page, he looks like he's aging to me a little bit. It's a neat drawing. You know what I mean? Like his beard is less kempt and it looks like he's got some wrinkles. I think it's trying to indicate that there's some aging going on. And you said something that I don't want to forget, one more thing about America burning to the ground. If you recall, in one of the really neat splash pages that we had, I think in the last issue, there was one of these like red hooded guys in the background with the explosion looking over it all. And that was kind of part of that vision that he had when the axe was messing with him. He saw them burning America or like above it in some way.
You know what I'm doing? So I'm currently looking at issue 1 right now, and I'm trying to compare the boot.
You're trying to compare the boot. I love it. He's talking about the boot of the person that says the Grand Architect will be most pleased, because I'm assuming that's not one of the Three Stooges because he's more articulate than them. And Ghost Machine Fans, he's looking for the boot because the panel only shows the boot of said character and the chat bubble or whatever.
So he is kicked. Wait, is he? No, who is this character? Oh no, that's not him. Yeah, I wonder whose boot that is. Whose could it be? From the ritual, they said. They're definitely Brits. Like if you go back to that ritual, they have the British flag on their back. On one of them has it on their back.
Good catch.
Which is weird. Why are the founding fathers getting involved with cult members from Britain? I'm very curious.
Maybe they're time travelers too. I am like way too obsessed with the time traveling theory, but like obviously in Geiger, America is burnt to the ground.
Yeah. Oof.
So it's somehow, this group with extracting some of his power responsible for that, which leads us into like him time traveling, maybe trying to change things. I'm very intrigued.
It's very fascinating.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it's going to go. We did get a little hint that in a couple of issues, there's going to be something significant to Simon's journey that's going to happen. It would be interesting if the Grand Architect or the guy in the boots was Benjamin Franklin, because that Benjamin Franklin has never been revisited since that one night, and he might be bitter and somehow, but how would he have lived? Because he didn't get the power. I don't know. You really threw me with your boot quest there on that. Appreciate that.
Is he a founding father though?
No, he
I should know
was, but I
that.
don't know if he was an immortal, because the ritual that made Simon into an immortal was supposed to make Benjamin Franklin into an immortal, but he didn't because Simon got in the way.
I just recall earlier in the book, during the height of the infighting amongst what was left of I guess there could have been other founding fathers.
Yeah.
It could have been Ben Franklin who killed John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Who knows?
Well, we're going to find out next week.
We need to read episode 4 stat.
I have one complaint.
Yes.
Wasn't long enough. My problem is I just want more. It is really hard to wait for all of these books, but Redcoat in particular is just it's almost painful.
I felt like it was more painful after talking to Brian, and he's like, "Yeah, we're gearing up for like 100 books," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I feel like my emotions are being told with.
Yeah, I will say, to your point, it's awesome to read these as they come out, but these are stories that once they're in collected editions for arcs are just going to be, that's just going to be awesome when we can do that. Because when each one is done, I'm going to go back and read them all at once, many times, I am sure. So our listener mail question, which is a segment we have added since the last time I think we met with you, Michael. It's one that we can probably all chime in and weigh in on. Our listener's name was Doug, and he sent a very simple question, but it's appropriate for this issue, and it's especially appropriate with some of the things that Brian hinted at about Simon's future. And the question is, if Simon Pure were to become a wizard one day, what kind of wizard would he be?
Are we saying which house?
See, that's that he didn't. Dog did not specify, and I toiled over that question because I was like, does this have to be restricted to Harry Potter, or like does he have the option of being a Gandalf-like wizard? Like, are there options? So what made me think about
he would
Harry
never
Potter?
be a Gandalf type wizard. You've clearly not read the books.
He is 100% Ron Weasley.
Ron Weasley?
Maybe,
or one of the twins.
Oh, twins. Okay, I'm not an expert, so I'm going to defer to Becky.
Fred or George Weasley. He's if this is, first of all, we're going to answer this question first as if it was Harry Potter, and then we can speculate onto the kind of wizard he would be. He would not be in Slytherin. He would not be in Gryffindor, because that's like bravery, ambition, or Slytherin's more like ambition. He wouldn't be in Ravenclaw. He would just be a Hufflepuff. Sure. Not like there's anything wrong with Hufflepuffs, but they're kind of like goofy and just doing things. And he'd be a Weasley for sure.
Because there's so many of them. Yeah. We do know two things. One is to Harry Potter, one is to not. And that is that we just saw them use a wand very aggressively. So that's definitely a thing. Yeah. Brian pointed out when we asked a question about this that no matter what happens, there will never be any pointy hats, quote unquote. And so, perhaps it's more like the some of the characters in those Fantastic Beasts ones or whatever, right? Like that are like action wizards. Isn't that a thing in those Harry Potter Fantastic Beasts movies? I've not watched any of them.
Becky has her face in her hands.
Like Jude Law, wasn't he in one of those or something?
Yeah, let's move forward.
I think he would be a cool wizard.
Is he a cool wizard?
No,
apparently
he would
a
definitely
Hufflepuff.
Be a cool wizard. I think I got it for any of the Harry Potter listeners. He's a Hufflepuff, and he's one of the Weasleys. You're right about Ron.
I'll give you this, Doug. I would say that if Simon becomes comfortable and familiar with his quote, magical aptitude, he will be likely to use it for like selfish things, but only small selfish things. I don't see him like being as malicious. Oh, food? Oh yeah, he'll conjure up some food all the time. Absolutely. But not to like kind of like John Constantine. John Constantine is generally doing the right thing overall, but he'll like do little things with his magic to his own benefit selfishly. So I could see Simon kind of skirting the line of morality a little bit with his newfound magical powers. But I guess we'll have to find out next time in
No,
Redcoat.
I think I'm excited that they're exploring the magical root of things. In case you couldn't tell by my animated response to what house he would be in, I read not just Harry Potter, but a ton of books that are in the magical realm of fantasy. And it does seem like they're kind of going down a road of like magic has a price, though.
Mm-hmm.
So
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. All right. Well, it's been a fantastic Redcoat episode. It's been a fantastic deep dive. Michael, did you have anything else that you wanted to throw out there for this one?
Not that I can think of. I just love it. Bring on issue 4. Like we're recording this. It's been a full week, almost a full week since this issue came out. So we're only 3 weeks from the next one, right?
It's actually because of our schedule being what it was. I think it's been 2 weeks since this came out. So you may only be, by the time this episode releases.
Thank goodness. That's great to hear.
Geiger 4 came out a week ago, and we're going to be behind on that, and we'll be catching up. That's how many titles are coming out for Ghost Machine.
I was one of the lucky ones. I got this book a week prior. It's been 3 weeks for me. So
that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
There was a printing snafu or distribution something with this, as I recall.
Yeah. I've had those on my book already, so I know.
Oh my goodness, you privileged soul. The loyalists get special treatment, apparently.
Oh, I can't wait till they reveal who the true Northerner is.
And it's just you.
It's just Michael. You're still the author of Armor. You're still on the Wizards podcast, but you're in the world as the Northerner.
Yeah, and I just have advanced copies of Redcoat.
But only Redcoat.
I'm in the future with Geiger reading all.
Yeah, you never see Geiger reading comics. He's got to read some comics. Yeah, I guess we'll have to see. No, that's not true. He's read Junkyard Joe in an issue.
That is true.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, hey, I did want to mention, make sure to check out also the Wizards podcast. That's another thing that Mike does that we enjoy. I've gotten a kick out of several of the episodes of that. And you can see all of our social stuff as usual at www.GhostMachineFans.com. On there, that we do still have the forum going strong. We have a wiki that we would love to have more contributors for. And you can access our Instagram, which is where the majority of our day-to-day content gets posted. Snoggle, do you have anything else for the episode?
No, I'm just like itching for more. It's like that Dave Chappelle meme. I need more comics out. Sad.
I remember that. Well, thanks so much for joining us for another episode of the Ghost Machine Fans Podcast.